This next episode is with DJ Vibrato, Las Vegas DJ and entrepreneur, sponsored by 221B Tactical and Paradox Training. If you got somebody that you think would be a good guest in the Las Vegas area with an interesting profession, let me know in the comments below. Thanks. First off, thanks a lot for doing this. I really appreciate it. First thing I ask everybody now is what they carry every day. So being a DJ, what things do you carry with you every day? And when you're not DJing, what do you carry every day? Does it differ, or do you always carry the same things?
I always carry the same things in my day-to-day gigging. The only thing that really ever changes is how I prep the music. And so, if I'm playing to a younger crowd, an older crowd, maybe there's some song requests. So it really all just depends. I would say that's the only thing that changes. But I load everything into the same bag. I'm the kind of person that if it's out of sight, out of mind for me. And so if I take something out of my bag and I set it somewhere else, I'm going to leave that behind. And so I just make it a habit to make sure everything gets back into the bag when I'm done with the gig, or when I'm at the house and I'm working on something, or maybe I'm cleaning my bag out of stuff. I make sure everything goes back in there, because there's just too many variables, too many different cables and backup plans, whether it be a hard drive or a USB stick or whatever. I'm a big fan of backups, as you know. So for the most part, yeah, it all just kind of stays the same except for the music.
So what are those things that you do carry then?
So USB cabling, which goes to a hub, which goes into the laptop. I carry a lot of USB backups, and each USB has like one's for club, one's for clean edits. Another one might have, old school. So there's a lot of different USB options. I carry custom-made earplugs in there for the louder gigs. And, of course, my laptop, my headphones, charger for my laptop, and napkins. You'd be surprised that how often you need to blow your nose. You're out somewhere, and or if something gets spilt and there's no towels or whatever. So, I think I kind of got that from my dad. He always had napkins in the car, so it's just always carrying napkins. And I think that's pretty much it. I mean, business cards. Sometimes I'll keep tip cash in there, if I need to tip anybody, because I don't always carry money in my my daily life outside of DJing. So I'll keep smaller bill denominations in there. And parking passes.
Right on. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Bay Area of California. And I was born in '80, which I'm thankful for, that I had the chance to start DJing on vinyl. So I've been DJing for a bit over 20 years. And it wasn't it was a slow drip introduction to DJing. And I feel like it kind of started, with the music that we heard in the house. And so, what kind of music that my dad listened to and my mom listened to, was very diverse. But getting back to the question, I grew up in the East Bay, and the town was Antioch. I went to Antioch High, graduated '98, and it was a rough neighborhood where I grew up. It was just off of 10th Street, and we lived on Poppy Way, right in the middle of the block, and it was the time when kids rode bikes and got into trouble and lit stuff on fire and were adventurous, and this is kind of nothing else to do except just go create your own kind of fun, right? And as I got older, I would and started to drive. I would go into neighboring towns and hang out and do other things like in Walnut Creek. We spent a lot of time in Walnut Creek, and of course San Francisco. We go have a nice dinner. So Antioch to San Francisco, no traffic, is 45 minutes, give or take. So yeah, Bay Area was a great place to grow up. Really enjoyed it.
How did you get into music and DJing?
I touched on that a little bit, with the music that was being played in the house when we were young. My dad loved Prince, Michael, Quincy. He was a saxophone player. He played guitar. So yeah, music was a big part of growing up. And getting into DJing when I was just coming out of high school. My sister was hanging around with these kids, and I was always little brother tag along. And so she had this group of friends, and they were in this band, and they had to let go of their singer because although he was a friend and he was a good lyricist, he was tone deaf. Not much you can do as a tone deaf lead frontman. So they were needing somebody, and I was always kind of around, and they were like, well, would you mind if we asked your brother if he would audition? So I remember we were at Brunswick Bowl, and they asked me, and I was like, yeah, sure. And I had no idea what I was doing, and went down to the guitarist's garage, who's still my best friend to this day, and auditioned. And comparing against the guy who was tone deaf, I'm sure I sounded a lot better, even though I wasn't ever really great. And did the band thing for like 4 years. And as that was wrapping up, I started to get exposed to this house music thing. And we had went to somebody's birthday party in the Oakland Hills, and she was like a little raver house head chick, and she had the pool party cabana thing going on, and there was a DJ, and these people were dancing all weird. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but it's fun, it's energetic, it's different. And at the time, the hyphy movement was massive. It was in the peak of the hyphy movement. So hip hop and top 40, these were the things that were dominating the club scene. And I like some of it. I wouldn't have called myself like a rap fan, even though like the first album that I got was The Chronic by Dre, and I love that album. House music always did it for me. And so as I started to explore that scene, there was one pivotal moment that happened was I was dating this girl as I was coming out of high school. She was much older than I was. And she comes up to me one day and she says, hey, my friends are throwing this camping party. Do you want to go? I was like, sure. So we go, and it was like this camping rave, and it was like an hour and a half past Yosemite. I mean, we are talking in the cuts. Generator ran, multiple DJ areas. It was awesome. And that was the weekend that really got me involved in the scene and what it meant and the feeling and house music. And I came back and I was just like, I want to share this feeling with other people, what I'm feeling of this community and music. And the person that seems to be controlling that is this guy, the DJ. And so I came back and I raided my dad's record collection, and I got my hands on a one turntable, one CDJ, and this cheap mixer. I think it was a Newmark, and just started to try to kind of piece it together, and really didn't know what I was doing. And then and this was at the time where the internet was somewhat in its infancy stages, and you couldn't just Google stuff like you can today. And so one night I was out at a Harry Dent club. It was called Rouge in San Francisco. And there was this DJ who's just killing it. I mean, every song was a banger, hands in the air all night till close. This guy was just crushing it. And I was like, I got to go tell this guy, he's just murdered it. So I go up and I said, hey, I just wanted to let you know, you rocked it, man. And he goes, oh, thanks. He goes, are you a DJ? And I was like, kinda. Like, I don't really, yes, kinda. I don't know how to answer that. Because I wasn't playing out. I was a bedroom DJ. And I was like, yeah, I'm trying to be. And he goes, cool, man, where do you live? I go, Antioch. And he goes, I live in Concord. And that's like 2 towns over. He goes, here's my number. Call me. We'll hang out. And so I connect with him, and he goes, bring some records over. So I didn't have any records. It was my dad's records. So my best mix was like from Prince to Michael. And it wasn't even good at all. I didn't know how to beat match. I didn't really know what I was doing. And so I come over and I'm nervous and put the records up there. I start one. I'm trying to mix in the other one. And I get done and I kind of like look over at him like, how was that? And he goes, cool, man. Do you want to open for me? And I was like, yes, cool. And so there begun my journey as playing out was, this guy just gave me a shot, Pat Allen from the Bay. I don't know if he really grew beyond the Bay, but he was definitely a force to be reckoned with in the area at the time. And if you could play Ruby Sky when Ruby Sky was open, then you're definitely doing something right. And he had a residency there, and that was pretty cool. So I followed him around for quite a while, and did slummy bar gigs and did club gigs, and I learned a lot from my style and how I read the crowd and how I'm a DJ a lot to him. And I got to a point to where I felt like I was kind of stagnant under his I don't want to say leadership or tutelage, but just I felt like I needed to blossom beyond that. And so I started throwing my own parties in Walnut Creek, off on Locust Street, which is just off the main street. There was a little nightclub there. And I couldn't get into any of the inner circles. And I was actually able to convince the owner to give me my own night, my own party. And it was a Tuesday night locals party because there wasn't any locals parties going on in the area. You would have to drive all the way to San Francisco. And so we started doing that, and it got the attention of other promoters. And so I started doing Thursday nights, every other Thursday night. And they paired me with E-Rock. E-Rock is still doing his thing. So that's how I met E-Rock. We actually live in the same neighborhood too, which is weird, right? So it's like Bay Area boys moved to Vegas, and now we live in the same area. And so, it was me and E-Rock it was like first and third Thursdays, and still doing my Tuesdays. And then I graduate and start doing stuff in San Francisco, my own parties, other parties, did a couple festivals. There was How I Met Scotty Boy, which I was just with him a few weeks ago when he was doing the house brunch party here in town. We were playing the same festival on Hagenberger Road in Oakland. It was at this hotel called Hotel Ibiza, I think. Or maybe that's just what the party was called. Maybe the hotel was called something else. But anyways, so just bopping around and doing my thing, and really felt like I was on a good pace. And then Vegas came calling, and what I was making at these gigs in the Bay just wasn't enough to travel back and forth. And so it was a tough decision to cut everything that you had built up to do, and on the chance that maybe you could have something greater in the entertainment capital of Vegas. And it took time. It took a solid year for me to get my footing here in town. But I did, and I got signed to an artist management company, and I started gigging around, and that was kind of it for me as far as Vegas goes. And who knows if I would have found another way in if it wasn't for that. I'm sure I was persistent enough to do it, but that definitely helped because now you're traveling around. We were doing shows in Atlantic City, and definitely all over town, and played a lot of places. So that's the long and the short of it.
Have you ever felt that, wow, I've made it as a Vegas DJ? I'm actually doing this as a career, or do you ever feel like you've made it
No.
or successful
Nope.
at it? So it's just
Not
something
once.
you just keep going at.
You have milestones, and you take a moment to look at that thing, whatever it is, and you go, that was cool. And you keep pushing. And I've never, ever, and I think that's probably one reason why I'm a terrible promoter for myself, is I don't take my past successes and hold them up for everyone to see and go, look at me, this is what I've done and who I am and all my accomplishments, because I feel like, yes, those were great, but it doesn't define me. It's not who I am. It's not the end of my story. It's definitely not where I'm stopping. I'm not going to just sit here and rest on my laurels at this point. And I feel like if you're looking in the rear view, you're not focused on what's ahead of you, and that's the wrong place to be looking.
If you were to look back at obviously you just told the story of how you got to Vegas and everything. If you look back at that, as we just did, what would you tell yourself with the knowledge you have now? What would you tell yourself to do differently coming up from the moment you went to that party to where you are now? What would you tell yourself? How do I navigate this better? Or would you just do the same path?
I would do a lot of things similarly. The thing that I would tell myself to be better at is sock away some money for taxes, because that's a thing. And start producing sooner. It took me a while to realize that there's only so far you can go as a DJ, especially in this day and age. It wasn't always like that. Guys like AM definitely proved that you could be huge, or Jazzy Jeff. I think Jazzy's produced, but like these guys are known as DJs, and they're, they've made careers out of it. And, there's been a lot of supporting stuff around that. Right. And it's not like you just DJ and you're so great at DJing that now it's your career. It's like with AM, he got into the celebrity circle, and he got to be known as a good DJ in high society. And so that is, you take that element away, you're just a good club DJ. You know what I mean? And so, and that, rolled into other things for him, having, different investments and different things that he's tapped into. I mean, he's done acting, right? And or cameos, I guess, as you would call it, playing himself on TV shows like Entourage. Great show. And so I feel like to just focus so narrowly on DJing is a mistake, and that networking is a big part of it. Producing is a big part of it. Believing in yourself is probably the biggest part of it, right? And having the confidence in yourself, which is easier to say in hindsight. And when you're going through it, you're just looking around and there's no evidence of your success yet. And you're just like, well, how am I going to be confident in myself if I don't have these big wins to point to and go, this is why I should be confident? And I always lacked that. And it wasn't until I think my late 30s that I really started to gain that kind of confidence.
So you're saying that you would tell yourself to keep DJing, do very similar things, but maybe branch out a little bit more.
Sure.
Produce more, network more. So now, having said that, what are some things that you do that you've branched out on? It doesn't have to be just music related, but like anything. What have you done that expands that horizon to make you who you are?
So having money helps, and as you get more money, it frees you up to be more diverse in what you can do and have, of course, and invest in. And I feel like if you look at really anybody in any industry, they're all diverse in what they do and what they invest in. If Jamie Foxx, who we know as a musician actor, is diverse in all his ways, then shouldn't you be too? Right? You would think that having a music career combined with an acting career would be enough, but even somebody with all of that still needs to diversify. And, I just feel like that's something that was ingrained in me at a young age because my parents were very entrepreneurial. My dad always held down a job. I never knew him not to have a job. And there was always a side business. They had a carpet cleaning business. They had a limousine business. He flew planes, not professionally, but, he flew planes on the side. He had, music. He'd play his saxophone a lot, and then he got into playing guitar. And my mom had a nail salon, like forever, tons of different locations. And I always felt like that entrepreneurial spirit was ingrained in me, but yet with a safety net. And so I modeled that into my life. And so I always try to keep my eye out for different things. And like I said, having capital to be able to invest in things is a big part of that. Doesn't always have to be capital because, there's sweat equity and or a skill set, right? And so if you have a knowledge base or convincing somebody you have a skill set is probably even better than having the skill set itself, right? I don't personally have that in me to fake it until I make it. I'm quite the opposite. But when I started having money, and really when I started having disposable income is after I won this DJ contest. It was for this residency at a pool here in town in Vegas. And it was a sizable amount, 6 figures. And when I won that, I had more money coming in than really I knew what to do with. Like I bought the sound guy at the pool, like these glasses that he said he wanted. And he's like, oh, they're too much. And I was like, well, what's too much? And I can't remember how much it was, but they were like, I don't know, $1,200 lenses or frames. And I said, I'll half it with you. Would you get them if we split it? And he was like, well, yeah, but why would you do that? And I'm like, you're here every day. You're helping me out. You're doing the audio. I was like, dude, I got all this money. Like, here's whatever it was, $600, $700. And so, I was treating myself and, going out and that's where the tax story comes in. And no one had really helped me understand, when you make 1099 money like that and you're not socking away money for taxes, it's a mistake. And, you got to pay the piper, and learn that the hard way. And I would have hoped that the management that I was under would have helped me with that. It wasn't their job, but, in hindsight, I wish that would have been the case, but it wasn't. They were really just a booking agency was kind of like their job, and they did that. So, so I've diversified in clothing companies, real estate. Right now I am looking at actually, 2 things. A emergency service with, ambulances, having my own ambulance company. as of 2 days ago, or maybe it was yesterday, the county has opened up applications for companies to come in and provide that service, and that's not a window that's always open. And so there's just not enough ambulances in the valley, and so a business partner and I are looking at it and seeing what it's going to take, and I'm hopeful because again, nothing's ever really guaranteed, and if I lost my hearing tomorrow, it would make it extremely difficult to DJ. Not impossible, not in today's technology, but yeah, I just really like the idea of diversifying a lot. And the other thing is, I think I'm going to be starting a label this year, and I've thought long and hard about it because it's a lot of work. But yeah, I feel like the stars are aligned with that. Last year is when I got super serious about producing, and all I did was make music. And I think I had 6 or 7 releases last year. And when I got into 2024, I felt like I needed time to think about what the strategy was there. And I haven't stepped foot in the studio in 6 months. And that's to go from breaking your neck every day making music to full out stop, because I just didn't want to be on the wrong path when it came to the music. And I had some successes. I had some good releases on some notable labels, the biggest being Spinnin', which I'm grateful for. I just didn't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again and not really have a plan or a strategy. So that kind of led me to releasing music under my own label, while it's still at the same time, pitching my music to other larger labels, and also bringing on new, fresh talent.
So it sounds like, just like every other person you should diversify what you're doing in not only your personal life, but your business life. And it sounds like you're doing a good job with that. Have there ever been any businesses that you've explored that didn't turn out the way you wanted them to, or has everything you've done been a home run?
Every business does not turn out the way you want it, because we hope for perfection. We hope for something that is just smooth sailing and just like, oh, like this is a dream experience. It is never that way, and you can never see what is going to come, because that's just not reality, not in the business world. And so to have the ability to pivot and think on your feet and not get caught up on things is crucial. It's fundamental. It's the key to being able to be a business person. When things don't go wrong at your job, you're going to your boss, you're going to the owner, and and by and large, a lot of times it's a conflict with another person, right? And so it's a personality conflict as opposed to a corporate conflict, if you will. And as a business owner, there's just things that you deal with that are so different than being an employee. And yeah, I've had losses. There was an apparel company that I invested in, and I was an angel investor, so hands off of operation, hands off of how the money was spent and what departments it was invested in within the company, and it didn't work out. And I wound up in a lawsuit. At the end of it, one of the other investors, I got enough money into the company to get it off the ground. We purchased all the intellectual property, some inventory, and there just wasn't enough to really take it full-blown marketing scale into the festivals. And so we needed more capital. And my business partner at the time acquired another investor, and he was the one who wound up just completely suing everybody. And thankfully, even though I had to lawyer up and spend money on that, thankfully, once the judge combed through the details of the case, saw that, I was just an investor like him. And, since I didn't have any dealings with the internals of the company, that why is Brian involved in this lawsuit? And they excused me from the lawsuit. So I wouldn't say that ended well, but it didn't have the ending that I was hoping for, right? And so, the goal is that you have a successful idea and that it resonates with people in the market, and you start to make money and you start to see capital back, and you get a return on your investment. But most of the time that is the case. Most businesses fail. I'm statistically speaking. And so if you, I guess, tally up all my different ideas and investments, I would say I'm ahead.
I heard you're involved with the Graffiti Mansion. Would you like to talk about that?
Sure. Why not?
Tell me how you got involved with that whole thing and just everything about it that you can.
Sure. The Graffiti Mansion. Well, I'm no longer involved currently. But the Graffiti Mansion is an idea. So there's a difference between the perception of the idea that it was turned into and what we initially got the property for. The property was purchased simply as like an Airbnb rental, and that was the model. And the model worked for a while, and again, angel investor was my role, and I didn't believe that we could do it in the first place. So my partner at the time, he was my partner with the apparel company, and I saw him killing himself. I saw him breaking his back to make the apparel company work. And it, by and large, was just kind of a poor idea that I think people thought was cool, but the cost of the stuff that we would have to sell it for was just too expensive, and we couldn't figure out a way to get the price of the products down, and we couldn't pivot out of it into like other ideas because it was really about this one specific technology, and we just couldn't get the price down, and I think it was just too expensive for the market. And if you're at EDC, which we were one year, I physically wasn't, but as a company we went, and you spent a insane amount of money on the tickets and flights into town and hotel stays and all that, and you probably have very little money for merch. You're going to buy a shirt that says EDC on it, not a shirt that glows. End of story. And so, and we couldn't get the rights to put EDC on the shirts. We tried. So anyways, so seeing the work ethic in the apparel company, even though it was a fail, I didn't hold it against him. And when he came to me with the idea of the house, my first reaction was quite literally like, I can't afford it. That it's a multi-million-dollar home. I ain't got that kind of cheddar. And so he was like, no, just trust me. We can make it work. And I'm just like, I don't see it. And that's another reason why I really loved my partnership. His name's Armani. Loved my partnership with him was because he was the guy with the vision. He was the guy who was the dreamer, but yet also was the guy who could put together a strategy, put together a budget, pull together a team. He could be the balloon and the string all at the same time, which is rare. And so I felt lucky because more or less I'm investing in him. Yes, the money's going to buy this house, but none of it would have worked or penciled without him. And I definitely didn't have the time to be boots on the ground and to help in the way that he needed help. And so it was completely up to him. And I thought he did a great job. And, you know, with any partnership or any relationship for that matter, nothing goes perfect. And ours certainly didn't. But I'm happy how things ended up, and I'm happy that we're still friends. And yeah, that was quite the run. We did some things. My one thing was, if you need a DJ, you know who to call. And he took that to heart, man. He really did. Anytime there was you know, an opportunity to have me down there, he did, and I appreciate that, because he was true to his word, and not a lot of people are these days, right? And so they tell you one thing, do another. And yeah, we had fun.
Great. So being a DJ, I'm sure you've seen some crazy things, and I'm sure there's some things that you can't talk about. But what are some things that come to mind when you think of how people get crazy and out of control in Vegas while you're DJing?
Fights is a normal thing. Never great when it happens. You know, you have to, there's a lot of power in the music, right? It's, you know, you really have to watch what's happening in the club, or event or party, whatever it might be. If you know, you're playing too rough of music and the crowd is rough, you have the power to ignite something that is negative for the club. You mix in some alcohol and it's a powder keg. It really is. And so I'm always cognizant of keeping things light. So if I play some, you know, some hip hop tracks, something that's really, really heavy and, you know, gets people riled up, I might play like a little mini set of 4, and then I'll switch it into something that's lighter if it's an open format scenario. Sometimes you have specific direction on what you can and cannot play. Sometimes it's all clean. Sometimes it's whatever. But yeah, fights is a regular thing that happens in clubs. And sometimes it's completely out of your control, but it's never a positive thing for the club. And that's really, as a DJ, that's something you have to keep in mind of what is overall best for the club. You know, even rotating the dance floor. So if you're killing it too much and no one's buying alcohol, you're great. You're doing a great job playing music, but you know, you need to help the bar out, and you need to rotate that dance floor and throw a song out that you know's not going to be all that popular, and let people go take a water break. And so, you know, that's another part of it. And that kind of stuff reaches the highest levels of being a DJ. I remember having a conversation with Aoki's cousin, who I became friends with, which is how I ultimately met Steve. I was talking to Taku, is his name, and he asked me point blank, how do I get Steve to the number 1 spot? How do I get him to do what Tiesto's doing? I was like, I didn't even realize like that would be even an issue for somebody like Steve. You just think like you're so high up into the stratosphere that you don't worry about those kinds of things, but you know, it's actually even more important. And I thought about it, and I just said, you know, I don't know if this is it. This is just through my perspective and my lens. But my opinion is that he's been around longer, and he has people that have been listening to him for generations of fans. And those people grow up and they have expendable money and they want to go relive their youth. So they're going to go see Tiesto in Vegas and they're going to spend, money on the bottles. And I said, I don't think Steve has that. He's a superstar without question. I don't feel like he has the time that Tiesto's had. And then I think I added that I felt like his cake throwing, stage diving, shirt taking off was a little slapstick, a little like one trick pony kind of thing, and that's cool and that's going to work. He's known for that, but once you've seen it, you've seen it. Tiesto doesn't have those kinds of gimmicks at all. I had the chance to meet Tiesto, and he was just super nice and super humble and extremely down to earth for being, the kind of, talent and success that he's had. Just nice guys. What was the original question? I think we got off track.
It's all good. What to you defines success? Not just as a DJ, but as a person, as someone in life just trying to get through. What is success to you? What does that mean?
Balance. One word.
Balance.
Balance. That's the goal. Doesn't mean you're always in it. And it doesn't mean that you're constantly achieving it. In fact, more times you have to be out of balance to then get in balance. And as we were talking earlier, that is what I tell the kids from the scholarship. And just to recap for the shoot, I'm no longer on the committee, but I spent 12 years on a scholarship committee, and it was one of the largest in the country. And I didn't necessarily enjoy the process of sifting through essays and grading them, and I don't particularly like reading that kind of stuff. I love other kind of books, but not that kind of reading. And it was just kind of like boring work for a good cause. Obviously, I did it for 12 years. But when I would, when the committee would finalize the winners and we would all go down to LA and we would invite the winners down, that's one of the questions that I would pose to the kids is, what is success to you? And you'd see them struggle. And I would ultimately just kind of help them a little bit and give them my definition of success. And it was always balance. And so if it's like you're balancing life and work and extracurricular activities, whether it be travel or hobbies or a hobby that turns into a business, all these things. And then you have kids and it changes things and priorities shift, and what you need to balance changes out, right? And so it's constantly evolving. And I always try to be cognizant of that. Never tilted on one side, one way or the other. Sometimes, if you're starting something new, it needs your undivided attention for a long period of time, especially if it's in the entrepreneurial realm. And other things will suffer because of that for the moment. And then you will reach a point to where it will plateau, and you doing that thing isn't as hard. It doesn't take as much brain power. You've got a system or an SOP, if you will. And it is kind of off to the races, and then you can kind of sway back the other way and, spend time with your family or your girlfriend or your wife or your husband or whatever it might be. And that is life, but balance is my definition.
That's great. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I had a great time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.